In the dim glow of the city's lights, the pulsing beat of helicopter blades throbbed through the night, their searchlights sweeping over the streets in pursuit of a target. An urgent radio call broke through the tense silence. Sickle was needed at Hospital 13, now the epicenter of a high-stakes hostage crisis. Police cars lined the hospital perimeter, their lights flashing red and blue across the building's sterile walls as officers commanded the perpetrators to surrender. Inside, a man in a dark hat held his hostage with chilling calm, the cold steel of his gun pressed against his captive's temple. The sniper, perched in his vantage point, assessed his shot while his target seemed more confident than terrified, his gaze unsettlingly steady. The hostage even offered unexpected advice, suggesting that his captor secure the room against the assault team gathering outside. The gunman faltered, unnerved, as curtains were drawn shut and the space fell into shadows. Chapter 1. The night sky over the city pulsed with the rhythmic beating of police helicopter blades, their searchlights cutting through the darkness. In the tense atmosphere, an officer's voice crackled over the radio, urgently requesting Sickle's status update on the target's whereabouts. The response came back swiftly. Hospital 13 had become the focal point of their operation. The scene at the hospital had escalated into a full crisis, with police vehicles forming a tight perimeter around the building, their emergency lights painting the walls in alternating red and blue. Through their megaphones, law enforcement officers issued stern commands for the perpetrators to surrender their weapons and free the hostages. Inside, the situation had reached a critical point. A mysterious figure wearing a hat had taken control, pressing the cold barrel of his gun against the temple of a dark-haired hostage. His voice echoed with desperate authority as he warned that any movement would result in immediate deadly consequences. The tension in the air was almost tangible as the commanding officer discreetly communicated with the position's sniper, assessing the possibility of neutralizing the threat without endangering the hostage's life. The sniper, looking through the optical sight, answered 10%. The guy with dark hair smiled and said that it was too unprofessional, and such emotionality would only reduce his concentration. And then the sniper would have a great chance to shoot him in the head. As the spotlight of a police helicopter was shining on them, the man shouted at him to close his mouth. The sniper, looking through his scope, discovered that the man was hiding behind the hostage. The policeman, cursing, said that he understood everything. He ordered the move to Plan B and ordered the assault team to prepare. The hostage, smiling broadly, told the man that if he were him, he would quickly hide in some remote place and lock all the windows and doors, being careful of the assault group. The man told him to shut up and asked which one of them was the kidnapper. He said he didn't need his advice. The door slammed shut, the windows were covered with curtains. The policeman asked what he was doing. Here's an enhanced narrative that maintains the tension while smoothly converting the dialogue into descriptive prose. The harsh beam from the police helicopter's spotlight exposed the scene below in stark detail, casting dramatic shadows across the standoff. The armed man, increasingly agitated, barked at his hostage to remain silent, his nerves clearly fraying under the intense pressure. Through his precision optics, the sniper made a crucial observation. The suspect had positioned himself strategically behind the hostage, using him as a human shield. This revelation prompted a frustrated curse from the commanding officer as he quickly grasped the complexity of their situation. Without hesitation, he initiated Plan B, instructing the assault team to prepare for immediate action. What happened next was unexpected. The hostage, displaying an unsettling confidence, broke into a wide smile and offered his captor some eerily specific advice. He suggested that the gunman should seek refuge in a remote location, securing all possible entry points against the approaching assault team. This strange behavior visibly rattled the armed man, who snapped back in confusion, questioning the true identity of his supposed victim and rejecting the suspicious guidance. The situation took another dramatic turn as doors suddenly slammed shut and curtains were hastily drawn across windows, plunging the interior into darkness. The commanding officer's voice cut through the radio chatter, demanding an explanation for this sudden change in scenario. The tension in the air thickened as the tactical situation grew more complex with each passing moment, leaving everyone wondering about the true nature of this apparent hostage situation. He said that he seemed to have guessed their plan. He asked the head what they should do. Another policeman ordered not to do anything unnecessary, and from above, they said that this man had some very important thing in his hands, so they should retreat. The kidnapper glared out the window, his gaze darting from shadow to shadow before he turned back to his captive with a furious scowl. "What kind of pack of dogs are they sending after me?" he demanded, clenching his fist over his chest. "Do they really know what I have here, in my hands?" The hostage, watching him with a calm yet defiant smile, leaned forward. "Looks like you're in serious trouble, doesn't it? They've cornered you and you thought you could just use me as your ticket out of here." The kidnapper sneered, raising his gun and aiming it directly at the hostage's chest. "Did I say you could talk?" he growled, his voice low and threatening. Do you really think I won't pull this trigger? The hostage raised an eyebrow, unfazed. He slowly lifted a hand and pointed his thumb back at the room behind him. You sure you know where you are? You haven't figured it out yet. The sign said hospice. The guy, touching his forehead with his index finger, said that they live here for a maximum of 2 months. Gritting his teeth, the man swore. The guy, raising his palm up, asked what he should be afraid of, a man who would soon die. He asked if he could ask him something. The man looked away and told him to leave him alone. The guy grinned and said that he seemed to have just been looking at himself very closely. He asked if he hid anything valuable there. The man turned around in fear. The guy suddenly grabbed the pillow. He threw a pillow at the man's face. Jumping up from his seat, he sharply grabbed him by the wrist of the hand with which he was holding the pistol. The guy hit him in the face with his fist. He grabbed his hand with both hands. The man screamed in fear. The guy dropped the man to the floor in one motion. The man, lying on the floor, asked if he had deceived him. The main character said that he really didn't have long to live, but for the wrong reason. Squatting next to him, he said that he had wasted 7 minutes and 28 seconds today just because he suddenly burst in here. Picking up the rectangular object, he asked if this was what he was hiding and whether it was because of this thing that those people surrounded him. The man demanded that the item be returned to him. The main character opened the lid of the box with a grin. Pixels surrounded him, and he exclaimed slightly in disbelief. Streams of golden energy filled the room. The man desperately extended his hand. The dialogue box says, "Time travel entry." A golden symbol appeared on the protagonist's hand, and he asked what that sound was. The man asked if he understood what he had done. He said it was an account from another world, but it was the end of him. By kicking him in the face, the main character said that he was already doomed to die. He knelt down, picking up the gun from the floor. Putting the muzzle of a gun to the man's forehead, he said that if he didn't tell him about this otherworldly account, he would die right now. Chapter 2. The man said in fear that he would tell him. 2050. A mystical meteor shower has greatly changed their world. The dragon fiercely opened its mouth in which flames were visible. He was surrounded by other beast-like monsters. After it, some people were able to move to another world and undergo various tests there, but they could return to reality only after successfully completing them. As a reward, one could receive jewelry from that world, cures for all diseases, powerful weapons, and even special things that a person could not imagine. The appearance of another world greatly shook the order of the native universe. People began to attack travelers through the worlds, wanting to know the secret of crossing spaces. After completing a series of games and battles, people found out that the key to movement lies in a special thing called an otherworld account. Those who receive an otherworldly account receive a special mark on their body. Teleportation to another world occurs within a quarter of an hour. The man said that these people began to be called travelers. The mark on the protagonist's hand glowed slightly. There are 59 seconds left on the timer. There was a loud knock at the door. The police knocked down the door and burst in, ordering them not to move and to release the hostage. Seeing something, the police froze in amazement. The kidnapper was tied to a chair with rope. There was a pistol on the floor in front of him. The police asked what it was. The dialogue box said, "Traveler Lua, the test will start in 1 minute. Please prepare." There was a countdown on the phone screen that showed 59 seconds. Lua said that from what he had just learned during the interrogation, no matter how much time had passed since traveling to the other world, in reality, it was only an instant. Standing on the roof, he said that when crossing, you can't take anything except the clothes you're wearing, so you won't be able to take a weapon. The main character said that the police took that guy, which means they and the elders will not touch him. Looking at his palm, he said that according to that guy, the test in the other world is relatively safe, and it is almost like a game. The dialogue box says, "Traveler Lua, please be careful. In 10 seconds, you will enter the test space. Please be prepared." Lua, smiling, said that he found the supernatural world a few months before the end of his life, and it would be stupid not to visit there. A look of determination crossed his face as the system weared to life. Digital processes began their work, initiating the traveler's connection sequence. The sophisticated program methodically scanned its participant, preparing to generate a character login in this mysterious new realm. The square bustled with activity, its grand stone columns standing like ancient sentinels around the perimeter. In this public space, a remarkable transformation began to unfold. Pixels materialized in mid-air, gradually coalescing into a humanoid form. The system's interface flickered to life, displaying its first verification message confirming the presence of a traveler named Luja. As the digitization process completed, Luja found herself emerging fully formed into an unfamiliar and peculiar new dimension, its surreal elements blending seamlessly with digital constructs that only hinted at the vast complexity lying beneath. She took in her surroundings, marveling at the strange fusion of organic and synthetic designs, which shifted and pulsed as though alive. Almost immediately, a floating dialogue box materialized in front of her. hovering just within her line of sight. The box contained the system's next instruction, calmly yet precisely detailing what she needed to do. It explained that participants, like herself, could access their character cards simply by thinking about them, a testament to the advanced integration between the mind and this digital interface. The convenience and sophistication were astounding, surpassing anything she had encountered in the physical world. All of her vital stats, abilities, and unique traits would be readily accessible with a single thought, making the experience feel like an unprecedented blend of reality and the digital domain. Luja took in his surroundings with wonder and disbelief, his unspoken question about being in another world hanging in the air. Acting on the system's guidance, he mentally commanded the character card to appear. The interface responded instantly, materializing a detailed display before him. A final system message explained the dynamic nature of the character map, describing how it would serve as a living document of his journey, recording every change and challenge he faced during his upcoming trial. This table is your current characteristics: Luja, level 1 person, attack power, very weak defense, low, spiritual resistance, extremely weak, speed, low, perception, low, strength, 2, agility, 2, body, 3, perception, 2, spirit, 3. All characteristics are divided into 5 types. Strength determines the level of your attack, speed depends on agility, the body determines the HP limit and defense capacity, perception is responsible for the volume of perception, spirit determines spiritual resistance and SP. The backpack is empty, there are no skills, no mechanisms, current points, 0, intensity rating. Paper. This is your table of skills and items, current inventory space, 30 pieces. You can only get points by passing the test. You can exchange them in the public area or sell them to other participants. Intensity rating is the system's determination of your combat effectiveness. The main character, rubbing his chin, said that the paper level sounds very weak. You heard someone say that this is a new green level product, a poisonous sword. The guy in dark glasses asked how this was possible. The guy in the armor asked if that wasn't the thing that exploded in the parallel test. Someone said that the penalty for dying in the parallel level challenge is too high. He asked who would decide to sell green equipment. The hooded guy said that he is an expert, and this is indeed the poisonous sword from the parallel level trial. In front of him lay a poisonous sword. Attack, normal effect. Poisoning during an attack, the chance of applying a poisonous effect is added. Knowledge of the testing system was widespread throughout this digital realm. As discussions unfolded in the square, players spoke of the 4 legendary difficulty levels: paper, parallel, strong, and cruel. Tales circulated of many powerful warriors conquering the parallel and strong levels, but the cruel level remained an unconquered summit, its challenges yet unsurmounted by any player. The conversation shifted to valuable items, particularly the coveted blue and green level weapons, whose astronomical prices reflected their rare status. Among the gathered players, a shrewd merchant showcases questionable wares. A poisonous sword allegedly stolen from a notorious player ranked 56th on the hate table, the detail he shared with a calculating smile. The merchant, playing his role perfectly, adopted a conspiratorial tone as he explained the delicate nature of trafficking such items. He offered his supposedly hot merchandise for the seemingly bargain price of 500 points. His words sparked an immediate bidding war among the eager players, with offers rapidly escalating from 500 to 800 points. Behind his practiced smile, the merchant inwardly gloated at the gullibility of his potential customers, anticipating a substantial profit from his deception. Suddenly, an ominous sound cut through the air, causing every player in the vicinity to freeze mid-transaction. The tense silence was broken by an armored figure who identified the dreaded noise. The public area alarm had been triggered. The marketplace's atmosphere transformed instantly from busy commerce to alert wariness, as players realized their trading activities had drawn unwanted attention. The dialogue box says, "Attention, an extremely dangerous individual has been detected attempting to enter the area." People looked around, puzzled. The system reported that law enforcement had already been dispatched. Knights with huge swords approached the crowd. The dialogue box says, "Safe zone court, strength, strong." The optical interface is fixed on the main character. The dialogue box says, "Target detected. Criminal number 1 rating in the hate table, 1." The main character exclaimed. Chapter 3. The suspicious merchant's eyes widened with recognition as he frantically gathered his belongings. In the ensuing chaos, the blonde-haired player made his hasty retreat. The ground cracked beneath the knight's heavy armor as he launched into pursuit, his sword cutting through the air with deadly intent. Between ragged breaths, the merchant confessed his earlier deception about the judge's interest in Luja. As they fled side by side, he questioned whether Luja was also evading justice. Confusion painted Luja's face as he demanded answers, desperately seeking direction on where they could find sanctuary from their pursuers. Suddenly, a series of alarming system notifications materialized before Luja's eyes. The dialogue boxes reveal a shocking truth. He had somehow become the most wanted criminal on the server, with a maximum danger rating of 6 stars. The system coldly informed him that his capture would be prioritized with extreme prejudice, with the ultimate punishment being the destruction of its consciousness. Luja's mind reeled as his understanding of this safe game shattered around him. The bitter taste of betrayal filled his thoughts as he questioned everything he'd been told about this virtual world. His moment of introspection was interrupted by his unexpected companion, who gestured urgently toward a glowing blue portal, promising escape through teleportation. The guard stopped and swung his sword, shrouded in light. He swung his sword forcefully. Jumping upward, a stream of red energy shot out from the sword aimed at the main character. Luja was approaching the portal. The dialogue box says, "Dungeon entrance. The traveler hate value exceeds the acceptable threshold." The main character asked what kind of nonsense this was. A stream of energy was approaching him. There was an explosion of red energy. The guy with the blonde hair frowned with displeasure, looking away. He thought that he had failed. The dialogue boxes say, "Traveler Luja begins the challenge. Difficulty brutal, cruel level challenge reward, purple level treasure chests. Attention, death and cruelty mode leads to real death. Challenge loaded, obstacle, don't be afraid of death, have a good game. Goal, survive until the end. Tips, don't fear death is the most famous program in the entire multiverse. That's why many honored guests join. So candidates should be more courteous with guests. Candidates contest guests' favor at any time, which is divided into several levels: killing intent, disgust, coldness, friendliness, passion, obsession. The candidate should pay attention to personal qualities because if he causes disgust or favor is too low, problems may arise. We wish you to enjoy the game and the blind date and also find your destiny." The main character asked about the fact that he could die in reality. He found himself under the spotlight. He was surrounded by shouts from the public that a new candidate had arrived. The host addressed the audience and said that they had gathered to find the perfect candidate for one of their parallel dimension guests. He held up the microphone with his pinky and index finger raised. The red spotlight lights were turned on and shining onto the stage. The presenter, standing in an elegant pose, said, "Do not be afraid of death." Luja asked, "Didn't the previous guy say that no one had taken part in the brutal level test before, and why did they immediately talk about the new candidate?" A host announced that this time the candidate was Luja, who came from the human dimension. The spotlight shone brightly on him from above, and he covered his face with his hand, smiling. The main character thought that he would see what would happen next. The audience exclaimed that he was very handsome. The host said that Luja is a great candidate, and he thinks he will give them a lot of surprises. He said that this program is sponsored by the Spatial Committee, as well as the inexhaustible dimension of singles. The main character thought it was a surprise, and it turns out it was a blind date program. He thought that he used to be considered an arsonist because of which a fire breaks out in the hearts of girls. Remembering how he was lying in the hospital room, Luja thought that he regretted that after his injury he did not have the opportunity to meet his F. The presenter suggested looking at what the strength of this candidate was. He exclaimed in amazement that he had a paper level. He shouted that this was the first time such a candidate had appeared on their stage. Luja asked the system if there was any explanation for this level of power. The dialogue box displayed a detailed description of the world's unique test system. All creatures were categorized based on their class, creating a strict hierarchy. According to the system, the paper level was deemed extremely weak and vulnerable, hardly a threat to anyone. In contrast, those at the parallel level were recognized for their average combat prowess, capable but unremarkable in the grand scheme of things. The strong level represented the greatest combat power, showcasing those who could truly hold their ground in battle. Finally, there was the brutal level, a designation reserved for the most formidable beings, akin to bosses, overwhelming forces that commanded respect and fear. The main character, Luja, couldn't help but raise an eyebrow at the implications of this system. "So what you're saying is that I'm stuck in a test meant for the bosses? And to top it all off, I only have one life to spare." He let out a sarcastic chuckle, shaking his head in disbelief. "What a fantastic initiation for newbies like me," he scoffed, his tone dripping with irony as he contemplated the gravity of his situation. Suddenly, the host chimed in with excitement, clearly undeterred by Luja's sarcasm. "Ladies and gentlemen, the player Luja is not just any contender. He's by far the best in history. We can't wait to witness the most beautiful and epic death this world has ever seen." The words echoed in the arena, amplifying the stakes and the sense of impending doom that surrounded Luja as he braced himself for the challenges ahead. He said that in the end, only those players whose death will be the most outstanding are on the stage of this game. The main character called out to the presenter, mockingly referring to him as a light bulb. The presenter, taken aback, looked around in amazement before realizing he was indeed the one being addressed. "Are you talking to me?" he asked, a mix of surprise and amusement coloring his tone. "Stop talking nonsense," Luja cut him off sharply, growing impatient. "Weren't you the one who said this was supposed to be a blind date? Where is it?" Luja's thoughts churned as he tried to focus on the task at hand. He knew he needed to follow every detail of the instructions carefully. Success here would depend on gaining the trust of those around him and eventually passing whatever test awaited him. This strange environment was full of nuances he couldn't yet grasp, but following protocol was his best chance at navigating it. The presenter, who had been observing him closely, let out a small chuckle. "You know," he said with a playful smile, "I'm not really here, not physically at least. This," he gestured to himself, "is just a hologram." He suggested looking at their candidate because he behaves extremely confidently. Chapter 4. The host, brimming with enthusiasm, stepped up to the microphone and announced the first contestant. The crowd buzzed with anticipation, and the giant screens behind him began to slide apart with a slow mechanical hum, revealing a shadowy figure waiting in the wings. From the darkness emerged a girl with sleek, flowing black hair, which cascaded down her back like an inky waterfall. She wore a crisp white shirt tucked into a short pleated skirt, her long legs accentuated by sheer, thigh-high stockings that caught the stage lights with a faint shimmer. The host's voice rang out over the applause, introducing her with a flourish. "Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to present Miss Tender Red Lips." The girl glided forward, her movements almost unnaturally smooth, her expression soft and inviting, until, with the sudden tilt of her head, she opened her mouth in a wide, eerie grin, revealing rows of sharp, jagged teeth that gleamed menacingly under the spotlight. Her eyes, dark as ink, seemed bottomless, and the whites were stained a deep, unsettling red. She looked directly at Luja, her gaze both predatory and strangely flirtatious. With a playful, sinister air, she puckered her blood-red lips and blew him a kiss, her long lashes casting shadows across her cheeks. The presenter said that she is the star of their program, feeds on people's fear, and can feel their mood. Besides, she really likes to ask the candidate about her beauty and then devour him, causing horror. He asked what their participant thought. The main character frowned and closed his eyes, unable to hide the disgust on his face. He said that she was cute. The announcer said they should have expected nothing less from their player. The host's voice boomed over the speakers once again. "And now, our next guest." A sharp, spiny leg jabbed into the stage floor, sending a crack through the wood. The audience gasped as a figure emerged, moving with an eerie, graceful precision. "Allow me to introduce Miss Slender Legs," the host announced with a flourish. The girl stepped fully into the spotlight, revealing her unsettling, yet strangely captivating form. She had the upper body of a young woman with long, flowing white hair cascading over her shoulders and piercing, curious eyes, a total of 3 pairs, all trained on the main character with an unwavering intensity. Beneath her human torso, though, was the massive, glistening body of a spider, her slender legs stretching and bending in a predatory stance. The host chuckled, clearly enjoying the tension in the room. "Now the special guest," he said, "has a rather unique approach to romance. She prefers to lay her eggs in her partner, letting him bear the offspring instead. Unfortunately for her, all her previous partners are, well, no longer with us. So she's back on the show in search of new prospects." The spider girl crossed her arms over her chest, her gaze unflinching, each of her 6 eyes narrowing slightly as she appraised Luja. The main character felt the weight of her stare but didn't flinch, instead flashing her a confident grin. The host turned to him, a smirk on his face. "So, Luja, what do you think of our second guest?" Without missing a beat, Luja raised his thumb with an easy smile. "She's very beautiful," he said with playful sincerity, his tone calm and composed. The audience erupted in laughter and applause, a mix of nervous energy and excitement. The spider girl's gaze softened, and for just a second, one of her eyes blinked, almost as if she were pleased. The presenter exclaimed that this was a great start. He called girl number 3 onto the stage. The main character, frowning, thought that they should not underestimate a man on his deathbed. The hand grabbed the screen and it began to sparkle. The presenter announced the third girl, Miss Beautiful Forms. A huge girl walked onto the stage with a necklace of skulls around her neck. The host said she was a famous butcher who once tortured 16 of her partners and still has a proud record of failed relationships. The huge girl opened her mouth and let out a loud scream. The host exclaimed that this was her signature battle roar. He asked the main character's opinion. Luja apologized and asked if they were called. The girl looked at him sadly. She ran backstage, covering her face with her hands. The host said that deep in her heart, she is the right girl. He warned Luja that if he did not stop making gender-biased comments, he would be kicked out of the show. The main character, with his hand on his face, said that it seems that there are no girls in their show that meet normal human standards. The presenter said that they have those too. He said that they have the last girl left, a famous beauty in their infinite metaverse, and they say that the high level is cruel, and she was one of those who was on the threshold of the insane level regarding the 7 deadly sins, Miss Sloth. Luja said that it sounds promising. The host asked Miss Sloth to come on stage. No one appeared on stage, and he looked at his watch, looking behind the scenes. He apologized and said that they had just received a message from her that she was too lazy to come, so she would look for a partner from home while watching the show live. With a dramatic flourish, he struck a confident pose, drawing the attention of everyone around him. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the ultimate challenge," he announced, his voice resonating with excitement. "Here are the rules of the game. Our wonderful candidate must spend the entire day outside the house enjoying the warmth of the sun and the intimate company of his chosen girls." The anticipation in the air was palpable as the host continued. "Now that all our guests are settled and ready, I invite our contestant to step outside. Go forth and create beautiful memories together. Make the most of this day, have fun, connect deeply, and let your hearts be your guide." Chapter 5. In the solemn atmosphere of a public courtroom, a figure in crimson robes stood authoritatively behind the judge's bench. Giant Doi, a nervous-looking man with blonde hair, made his desperate plea to the court. He emphasized his modest status as a second-class merchant, attempting to distance himself from any wrongdoing. His gestures became more animated as he spread his arms wide, trying to convince everyone of his innocence. The tension in the room grew as Giant explained how he had fled because he thought unknown people were following him. His voice trembled slightly as he expressed his faith that justice would prevail once they caught the actual perpetrator. The courtroom fell silent as the manic official addressed Giant Doi, revealing that their investigation had cleared him of any connection to the primary suspect they were pursuing. Upon hearing this news, Giant Doi's shoulders visibly relaxed and he released a deep breath of relief, the weight of suspicion finally lifting from his shoulders. The judge said that he used the disguise to sell fake high-quality equipment, and many are unhappy with his actions, so the arbitration court should hand down a punishment. Hitting with a wooden mallet, he said that he was sentenced to credit 200 hate points and also be sent into exile in the Sea of Hate. He called a break. The guard dragged Jindal by the collar, and he desperately asked to wait. The man in white turned to the judge and asked whether they should continue searching for the traveler who was at the top of the wanted list. The judge said that there was no need for this because they had already arranged everything. He said that at the current level, the traveler would not survive the brutal ordeal challenge. Dungeons, don't be afraid of death. The cemetery was littered with skulls and tombstones. A huge girl sat in the middle. She tore the bear into pieces with her hands, nightmare Dun Fu level brutal. Taking a bite of bear meat, she asked how he dared to express himself like that. She said that she would kill him if she saw him again. Wiping her lips, Dun Fu said that she didn't think that such a wonderful game could have such scoundrels. The system alert informed the main character. Miss Tender Red Lips friendliness, Miss Slender Legs friendliness, Miss Beautiful Forms disgust. The main character, walking between the tombstones, said that he did not expect her to be offended. The system reported that the attitude of Miss Beautiful Shapes had changed to murderous. Lua looked to the side tensely. In an instant, Dun Fu's demeanor shifted, her eyes narrowing as she grabbed her enormous sword with both hands. Without a word, she swung it in a deadly arc, the blade slicing through the air with a fierce whistle as it hurtled toward the back of Lua's head. He remained unfazed, though, as if completely unaware of the impending danger. Instead, he murmured almost to himself, "Where did the beauty I so unintentionally offend go?" Just as the blade was about to connect, Dun Fu's hands hesitated, her grip faltering. Lua's words echoed in her mind, replaying over and over like a strange melody that wouldn't stop. He had mocked her. He'd called her beautiful in his own peculiar way. The blade hovered inches from his head, motionless as she stood, her heart pounding again for a very different reason. Seizing the pause, the main character took a step forward, his hand pressing firmly against his chest as he turned to face her with an earnest expression. "Even with all the charm I'm known for," he said softly, his eyes meeting hers with a spark of sincerity, "I've never met a girl like you." His gaze flicked down to the blade she held, a faint smile forming on his lips. "And now that I've seen your temper, it's as if I've been cut with a blade." Dramatically covering his face with his hand, he asked if perhaps he had not seen all the tenderness hidden under such a powerful body. Putting her finger to her lips, Dun Fu thought about hidden tenderness. The main character, looking at the ground, said that he had never seen such a person, and he was attracted to her because she is so gentle, cozy, kind, and sharp. Clutching the sword with her hand, Dun Fu thought about tenderness and kindness. The system reported that its attitude had changed to friendliness. Lua said that he was screwed when he missed such a wonderful girl because among the thousands of beauties there are no more girls with such a temperament. Dun Fu's heart pounded violently, each beat echoing in her chest as if amplified by her own disbelief. A system notification flashed in her vision, reporting in clinical detached words that her attitude toward him had shifted. Infatuation. She blinked, feeling the blush creep up her cheeks as she looked at Luo, who was now kneeling before her with a calm, steady gaze. Once Luo began, his voice soft yet unwavering, I heard a saying, that even in the midst of dirt, something truly beautiful can be hidden within. His hand reached out, brushing gently against the fragile white flower blooming bravely at his feet. True beauty, he continued, isn't always on the surface. Sometimes it's buried deep, waiting to be seen by those willing to look closely. He lifted his head to meet her eyes, a tender smile curving his lips. That's why such wonderful flowers can bloom in such a terrible place. He paused, his gaze unwavering, as if he could see right through her walls. I think you're like that, Dun Fu. His words, so simple yet so sincere, sent a wave of warmth rushing through her. She looked away, her heart racing faster as she tried to steady herself, knowing that something inside her had indeed begun to change.